Okay, very, very well. Thank you so much. Nimrod, this is your presentation now. Over the next 30 minutes. I can't wait to see what's the latest with the forms. I would have attended this session even if I wasn't moderating it. So there you go, captive audience.
Okay, thank you.
Let me go on mute and have at it.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining my session. My name is Nimrod Geva, and I manage the QuizCom product group. And today I'm going to speak about one of our apps, which is called QuizCom Forms. Actually, it's a very old product, one of our first products since SharePoint 2010. And today I'm going to speak about, of course, about QuizCom Forms app for SharePoint Online and for SharePoint 2019 server. Now, before I show you the features, and we have just 27 minutes plus time for questions, I would like to highlight the main differences between QuizCom Forms and many other forms and workflow solutions that I'm sure most of you are aware of. So many of us worked with InfoPath. I used to work with InfoPath many years, and I liked it. It was a good tool for us as a power user. And then came PowerApps, which looks amazing and really an amazing facelift and additional features. But when you look at such form design tools, and not just PowerApps or InfoPath, you see many form design tools that look like Dev Studio or design tools like this. They all look the same to me in the sense that they all target the same audience, and these are power users and not just SharePoint implementers. These need to be people who go through some serious training of InfoPath or PowerApps, and this is what they do. They are form designer or workflow designers. This is what they do all day. And looking from this perspective, PowerApps and other tools don't solve the problem that we see. You end up having a few tech guys, maybe IT, or maybe you hire some vendor to do these forms, but you end up with the same bottleneck that you need a few guys to implement all the forms for the entire company. And these could be even the simplest forms. So this is something that we felt and that is not solved, even with the best looking form designers today. And QuizCom Forms, like all of the other QuizCom apps, is designed for business users. Our target audience are site owners. Site owner could be a sales manager, marketing managers who owns a site. This site is used as the collaboration environment for the sales manager and his team. He's not doing SharePoint implementation on a daily basis. He couldn't care less, actually. Many of these users are told to work with SharePoint. They're not SharePoint geeks. They're not SharePoint fans. They just work with SharePoint. They know what is a list and maybe what is a web part, and that's about it, more or less. And same as they can do magnificent things with Excel without being data scientists, we wanted them to be able to do very nice things with dynamic forms without becoming a form designer, a power user, and all of this. So this is the main concept behind QuizCom Forms and other apps that we provide. So what I wanted to do now in the next few minutes is just show you a few common examples of very common requirements in dynamic forms, how you implement them in a popular tool like PowerApps, for example, versus how we think you should be able to implement them with QuizCom Forms. And I'm starting with I think the most common requirement from a dynamic form, which is the ability to dynamically show or hide fields or disable fields in your form, depending on who is the current user and depending on his actions in the form. Okay, so here I have a screenshot of a simple form, and I have the lead type drop down. And when I choose the product license value here, I want the additional fields to appear. These are product and quantity because they are relevant only if the lead type in this form equals product license. But if I choose a different value, I expect these fields to disappear. So this is a very common requirement. I think all forms that we are using today have some dynamic behavior in them, depending on the input that the user provides. So to implement this most basic feature, in PowerApps, you will need to use kind of a formula or a small piece of code. Not too complicated for me, but if I ask my sales manager to do it, he will look at me and say, like, do what? What are you talking about? In Quizconform Forms, and you'll see a live demonstration in a few minutes, it's all about logic rules. We don't bother the user with formulas or with pieces of code or with if and else and all these dev terminology. So here you see, for example, I'm configuring the products field, and I'm just setting a rule that says hide this field in these forms when lead type is not equal to product license. That's it. Another example, many times you need to dynamically show or hide tabs in a multi-tab form. So in this example, you see I have down here an upsell checkbox. And if I check it, I see an additional tab called upsell info. So this tab conditionally is displayed according to the user's selections in the form. So again, in PowerApps, you'll need a small piece of code that says, okay, this data card in PowerApps it's called, should be visible under these conditions. While in Quizconform Forms, again, what you will see is just a rule that says the upsell details tab should be visible when upsell is checked, and maybe additional conditions like you see here. But again, we keep you on the logic level. Another example is also very common. I think in every form you see cascading fields where one field filters the other, like country, which filters the state dropdown. Again, in PowerApps, you will need a piece of code which is similar to what you see here. While in Quizconform Forms, you will see a settings page, and you will just have to set up two properties, which says filter by a column in this, and I just select the country column, and then the column to which I compare to do this to do the filtering. Another example is how you validate fields. So many times you need to validate the user input before you let the user submit the form, right? You want the form to include solid data. So here I have a small example where I want to validate that the lead's next follow-up date should be prior to the due date of the lead. Okay, I want to compare these two date fields. Very basic, right? And here you see an example where the user tries to submit the form where the next follow-up is later than the due date, and he gets this validation error that says next follow-up must be earlier than due date. Doing it in PowerApps, again, it's kind of an advanced operation which requires you to code the onSelect event and to put this small piece of code, which is not, again, it's not so complicated for power users, but it's not something for business users for sure. In Quizconform Forms, same thing. You work with rule. You just set up a rule that says next follow-up should be validated as less than due date and show this error message. Some additional examples. What if I want to hide a column in the list views? Like you see here, I want to hide the price column in the list view. In PowerApps, you cannot do it because PowerApps deals with forms. It has nothing to do with your SharePoint list views. In Quizconform Forms, it's the same rules. You just say, okay, I want to hide the price column in list views, and I can add conditions or do it always. And same goes for the grid view. The grid view is like what was called before the quick edit view. it is used for bulk editing, and you might want to hide or disable a column, like you see here in the screenshot where I disabled the price column. So again, in PowerApps, it's not doable, while in Quizconforms, you set up a rule that says disable the price field in this views. Talking about form layout, and this is not just PowerApps. I think 99% of the form design tools that I saw are all locked on the concept of grid and tables. So when you design your form, you need to decide how many columns you have and how many rows, and then you place your field in the table cells, and then you might also get to pixels and all this stuff to properly arrange your form look and feel. In Quizconforms, we switched completely to Fluent UI, which means there is no table concept. You don't have to decide how many columns you have. You can have, like in the screenshot here, 2 fields in the first row and 3 fields in the second row and 7 fields in the next row, and you can control their alignment, but you don't mess with tables and with pixels and all this stuff. We render this for you automatically. You just say what you want to see, which columns, which fields, and next to which field, and we will render them properly for you. And of course, because it's Fluent UI, it is also completely responsive. There is no fixed tables. So it's one design, no matter what the target device is. Yeah, many times you need a wizard-like form where you have multiple screens and you would like to split your form this way to multiple screens where the user clicks next and moves to the next screen and next, and then maybe have a summary screen where he clicks finish, okay? When you try to do that with PowerApps, you need to manually create your cards, create this button of next and back and code the navigation between the screens. And then you also need to implement the logic of running the validation rules on each screen separately before you allow the user to navigate to the next one. Okay, so bottom line, you just have to manually do it. By the way, there's an excellent blog post by Reza, including a very nice video that explains to PowerApps user how to implement it. In Quizconforms, you just have your multi-tab form. You click the gear icon and you select one of the snippets that we provide, and one of them is just turn your tabbed form to wizard mode, and that's it. You don't mess with anything. We do it for you automatically. So these were just a few examples that show the difference in the concept. We don't expect you to be a power user. We expect you to keep doing what you do in your work. You want a dynamic form, you can do it a lot faster and quicker without becoming an expert in form design or in workflow design. Last thing I wanted to mention, which is very important, is about the way we implement our apps. And this is correct for all our apps. Many of the apps you'll find in the market have server-side components, and these server-side components, when you work with SharePoint Online, can only reside in the provider's cloud server. These are called provider-hosted apps. These are apps that render your data, process your data on their cloud server. And if we're talking about forms, you might fill out your form, click submit, then the form is submitted. Part of its data or all the data is processed on the provider's cloud server, and then the result is returned to the user. These are provider-hosted apps. All Quizcom apps, including the Forms app, is implemented as a SharePoint-hosted app. A SharePoint-hosted app is 100% client-side, meaning everything happens on the user's browser. None of your data goes out to our cloud server, and this is a key decision we made several years ago, and this is true also for QuizCom Forms. Okay, enough with the slides. I have 10 minutes to show you some how QuizCom Forms looks and feels. So I didn't prepare any fancy pre-designed, pre-configured forms, although it's the best, they always look best. I want you to see the real behavior because that's the focus of my presentation. Sorry, one of you is not muted. Thank you. I want you to see the real user experience, not with fancy forms. I'm starting from scratch. I won't show too many features, but that's the focus. I want you to see how fast I'm doing things and what is the user experience, which is really not a designer experience. And that's my focus here. So let's go to my list. And this is the lead tracker list, which I took snapshot from it, if you remember. I'm clicking the new item form just to show you that currently it's not configured. This is the out-of-the-box SharePoint modern form, okay? So I'm really starting from scratch. So once you install QuizCom Forms app, you'll see in every list toolbar, the QuizCom apps button here. And I'm clicking it, first of all, to activate QuizCom apps on this list, okay? So let's activate it. I should see now the message that says that QuizCom modern forms are not activated. So I'm clicking activate. And this is, of course, a one-time thing that you need to do before you start working with QuizCom Forms, okay? So first thing I want to do is make my form, you know what, let's start with the form layout. So these are all the features that we have with QuizCom here, and I can filter it by various categories. I want to show only the QuizCom Forms Enterprise Edition, QuizCom Forms Enterprise Edition features. And the first feature I want to start with is dynamic column permission. This is where you dynamically show or hide fields, okay? So as I said, it's all about rules. You don't see here a form designer, right? So let me go back to my slides and remind you what I want to do. This will take me just a second. Okay, so you see I have this product and quantity field, and I want them to be visible only if the selected lead type is product license. So let's start. So I'm selecting the product field, and I want to add a new rule. And I want to hide, I can also disable the field, I'm hiding it, in the following list forms: new item form, edit item form, and view form. Okay, very simple. And now I'm adding a condition that says when I want to hide this field. So I want to hide it when, and I can also condition it on the current user, which belongs or does not belong to some group, but I want to condition it upon the value of the lead type. So if it's not equal to product license, I want it to be hidden. And I'm clicking apply. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing with the quantity field. So let's add a new rule. And I want to hide it in these forms under the same condition. Not equal to product license. That's it. I'm clicking apply. Okay, so I'm going back to my lead tracker list, and I'm creating a new item now. Okay, so first thing you see that we display by default a wider form. You could change it to a sliding form, but when I switch now to multi-tabs, a sliding form and narrow sliding form won't do the job for me. So I just want to show you for beginning the dynamic behavior. So you see that I have lead type, and under it, we see work estimate. Now let's select product license. And now you see product and quantity. And if I select any other value, they're gone. Okay, so it's that easy to implement dynamic behavior. Next thing, I want to have a multi-column and multi-tab form. So let's configure the form again. And I'm going to select the feature which is called form layout. This is where you change your form layout. And as I told you, it's completely fluent. First thing I need to select if I want to display my field groups as tabs or collapsible, like accordion groups. I'll keep it as tabs, and let's start creating our tabs. So my first tab, I'll call it account details. Sorry. And now let's add some fields here. So I'm clicking here, add row, and you see I have one field. So let's add account. And now I want to add another field next to it, but I didn't define that I have two columns in my form, right? I don't need to. If I want to add a column, so I just click here, add column, another column is added, and I select account contact, okay? And if I want to add another row, I click here. And if I want here 3 fields or 5 fields, I just do that. And if I want the first field to be wider and to be aligned with the account field above it, that's what I do. I can grow or shrink it back, okay? I don't mess with pixel, and I don't mess with any tables or rows or columns or all of this. It's completely fluent. I just do, I just delete or add columns, okay? So I created the first tab. Let's create another tab really quickly. So I'm clicking new tab, and let's call it lead detail. Okay? And I'm quickly adding a few fields so I have something to work with here. So let's call it lead source, and next to it I'll add the lead, the published on site field, and let's add another row quickly and have here lead type. And you remember we have 2 fields that are influenced by lead type. These are product and quantity, right? So I want them to display next to it. And I want the lead type to be wider, so I'll just do this. Now it's aligned nicely with the lead source. And let's add another row, and let's add here the upsell field. That's a checkbox. Okay, and final tab, really quickly, I want it to be a conditional tab. And let's do it like this. Let's call it upsell detail. And I'm adding just 2 fields really quickly. And the first field is upsell amount. And next to it, I'm going to have upsell details. Okay? And I want this tab to appear only if I check the checkbox in the previous tab on this checkbox, which is called upsell. So I'm going to add a condition here to this tab. That's what I showed you in my slides. So I'm adding here a condition which says I want the upsell details tab to appear only if upsell field is checked. And I can add additional condition, but that's enough for me right now. Let's check everything that we did right now. So I'm refreshing my form. Okay, so I have here 2 tabs, okay? And as I told you, it's completely fluent. So if I narrow the browser a bit, okay, and let's make it a bit taller. So see how nicely it adjusts itself. It's the same design, both for mobile and for desktop, not because of special thing that we did. We are just using Microsoft Fluent UI. Now, look what happens when I check the upsell checkbox. Then I have my 3rd tab, which is upsell details. And if I uncheck it, it's gone. Okay, so this is the experience you have when you want to create dynamic forms as you saw, it's not a design experience, it's more of a setting rules experience. So we keep you on the logic level. Of course, we have cascading lookups and activities and custom actions, which are workflows, which enable you to automate stuff. You can also print your form, convert them to PDF, merge them. Let's say if this is a lead, you know what, let's do it. Why am I talking about it? I have a minute. Okay, so let's say I have this lead and I want to print it. I want to convert it to PDF. Okay, so I'm selecting it and I have here print items. And once I click it, I'll get this settings page. This is fully configurable. I configured our print service in this list to show the settings so the user will be able to change them. And if I click preview, what happens now is that we are converting this record or multiple record to a PDF document, which is now loaded on the user's machine. This doesn't happen on a cloud server. This happens on the current user's desktop. And this is important. Your data doesn't go anywhere. And as you can see, I configured our print app to show a header, which includes the list name, our company logo, and also I configured to show a dynamic footer. And you have here some additional settings of the print, and you can then download or print it and so on. So what I gave you is just really a quick taste of Quizconform Forms. Of course, there are so many other features here that I didn't show you, but I hope I was able to show you the end user experience. One thing that I wanted to mention, if you want to check Quizconform Forms or any other app, you can download a free trial and install the package on your tenant, or you can contact us by clicking here, try schedule a live demo, or try in a private sandbox. We can create a sandbox for you on our tenant if you wish to play with the product without installing it. So both options are okay. You can install it on your server, on your tenant, or you can have us create a sandbox for you on our environment. That's it. I think I have 2 more minutes for questions. So now it's a good time for questions.